Well, the Health and Human Services Secretary has come out and said that there may be other cases in the United States. And, of course, he went on to say and repeat that we need to leave the borders open and have unlimited flights from West Africa into the U.S. to stop it. Saying that aid workers had to be able to get over there and back when everyone knows there's international aid relief missions from the UN, NATO, AFRICOM, the United States military, and that most of the aid workers are not flying in and out via aircraft. And that's why the French and the British and countless others a month and a half ago banned flights out of the Ebola-struck countries. And the countries neighboring it, neighboring the other nations that have been struck by Ebola, the UN estimating millions will have it by December, they are controlling their borders and shutting them down and quarantining people, but not the United States. It is a politically correct religious sacrament. Because you cannot ever send the message that anyone could ever raise a hand to block a fist. The cardinal rule of the collectivists and the parasites is never, never, ever, ever, ever allow anyone to defend themselves unless they work for the state or the system. The cardinal rule of a criminal system is no one is allowed to defend themselves from crime, period, or disease or any threat. They want pure, servile, domesticated, deaf, dumb, and blind vassals who can't even communicate or have a costume party because it's racist. Where scientific words are thought crimes. Where if you deny that carbon dioxide is causing global warming, a proven fact that it's a total fraud, then you should be arrested. And I agree with Michael Savage. I mean, obviously, they're wanting it to come in. They're wanting it to spread on one end to create a crisis as a political diversion from Syria and Turkey, basically aiding al-Qaeda and attacks on the Kurds, and just huge news with what's happening with Russia, and Obama acting with executive orders on the future of the internet and on the future of carbon taxes and the future of the military and the future of Obamacare and the future of so many other things. All we're focused on is Ebola because it is a serious issue, but still distractionary overall from the larger globalist offensive that is taking place. And the cardinal rule is we can't ever imagine that having privacy protects you, or closing your door at night is a good thing, or having a border is a good thing. Only government buildings have fences and guards. You don't have a right to own a gun and protect yourself, they say. It's a privilege. Just like traveling is not a privilege, but they told all their mindless minions that, so they quack it at you at the illegal checkpoints and the rest of it. Inside the country, it is a right. And if you're a citizen, it's a right to come and go. Notice the CDC says, oh, we can't stop anybody from coming and going, including people that aren't citizens, like the gentleman that just died from Ebola. Because right now, the borders of the U.S. are completely gone. The country is wide open. We're going to break it all down today. He was on with us a few weeks ago, and before he goes back to South America, I wanted to get him back on. He's the author of Totally Incorrect, Conversations with Doug Casey. I enjoyed the interview. I thought we'd have him back on to take phone calls and also talk about political incorrectness, how we counter the Marxist-Leninist, I mean, that's what it is. That's not rhetoric. Mind control of where they're now saying ban men and women kissing, that it's racist. The CDC said, run for the hills, we're all dead, give us more funding. Oh, my God, biggest Ebola outbreak in history, which it was, taking place in Africa. It gestates, it incubates for 21 days instead of 3, meaning it can spread a lot longer. This is so incredibly dangerous. Oh, it could collapse Africa, it could kill millions. And then as soon as it shows up here, well, first, oh, it can't show up here, it's very unlikely, or, oh, it's no big deal, it's here, and we don't need to clean anything up. And then now they've taken a sheriff's deputy to the hospital that they made go into the building. Why were they sending sheriff's deputies and police into this person's apartment? Why didn't they have regular hazmat teams there once they knew the guy had Ebola? They waited 3-4 days. Why didn't they quarantine the family? All the defaults are turned off. Let me just give the police a little news flash here. I'm sure you already know this. The default is you don't go in to a house with smallpox or Ebola. A, you're just going to catch it and spread it. B, it's not your job. It's the health department's job and the state health department's job, and the CDC does have the prerogative over it on the borders and has hogged all the public funding, and so it is their job de facto. But as usual, they wouldn't help in Katrina. FEMA blocked everybody for at least 8 days, blocked all the local counties and cities, and the Texas fire departments and police departments that came that could have turned the power back on and fixed everything. But no, you can't send the message that the states or the counties or other states working together could fix things. So they had to cut the police communication lines. Remember that? It came out on CBS News. We actually had what was his name, Richard, the New Orleans parish sheriff on. We had him on. They were ordered to stand down. And he sat there for 4 days while his mother was in several feet of water up to the gurney she was on in a nursing home in New Orleans. And he followed orders and didn't go and get his mama, and his mama died. Let me just give everybody a little news flash here. If the feds are blockading a city just because of water and won't let people and won't let local departments get old people out of a nursing home or a hospital, and my mother's in there or my family's in there, I'm coming to get them. And that's not shooting my mouth off. I've got my life force. I've got my common sense. I remember watching that sheriff get up on TV and break down crying about how they wouldn't let him go get his mama. 30 years ago, the sheriffs would laugh at the FBI and FEMA, telling them they didn't have jurisdiction in their own county. Does everybody... And the reason I raise this now is it's the same thing with Ebola and political correctness and all the rest of it. They won't control our borders, and they won't stop the flights, even though everybody else is, from West Africa and countries that have literally collapsed. The countries right next door to Liberia and Sierra Leone and all the other 4 or 5 countries that have it, they have machine gun nests set up. Third world African dictators have more common sense, to quote Michael Savage here yesterday, than our government. But see, it's not common sense. Our government knows what it's doing. It is a religion to have open borders under globalism. And you can only have super region responses, super border responses from northern Guatemala up to Alaska in all the New World Order, North American Union, EU, Asian Pacific Trade Partnership documents. You can't have nations or cities or states or counties that are allowed to respond. You only can have global government respond. And so when they order the stand downs all over the world, this is done. Then people say something must be done. Give more funding to the multinational, multi-regional NATO Save Us, UN Save Us. Because here comes the big central planners. They know what to do. So what we're doing is decoding what's in plain view. 1884 is 1776. I guess that's kind of terrorism to actually come out and say that the answer to 1984 is 1776. Or maybe folks out there that are new listeners from the mainstream media are so dumbed down, you don't know what that means. We get emails every day. And I get asked on the street, what's that mean? Gee, the answer to 1984, an oppressive, dystopian, anti-individual, anti-classical liberal, anti-constitution, anti-America, anti-Renaissance, anti-freedom, is 1776. Individuals from the poorest to the most wealthy putting everything they have on the line up against a military no one had ever defeated and that no one defeated since. The English military and Navy beat the French, the Dutch, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Austrians, the Hungarian Empire, the Russians, everyone. until they went up against 1776, because people weren't going to stop fighting and weren't going to stop killing and weren't going to stop writing and exposing that they had the moral high ground. That's what it comes down to. They beat Napoleon just a few years later. Couldn't beat us. That's what 1776 means. That's why they demonize it and go, oh, they were bad. They did this and that. In their time, they were the Renaissance men. In their time, they were calling for more freedom. The ideals that they promoted, we have not even yet realized. But just the small realization of it created wealth and power untold. That's why 1776 is the answer to 1984. It was actually a famous British mathematician and statistics man who came to me in Canada and wanted to meet me. He died a few years after. I forget his name. We can look it up. We had dinner with him a few times. I looked him up. Turned out he was a really famous government statistician and mathematician. And he said, you know, Alex, the answer to 1984 is 1776. And that is absolutely right, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't coin that. I popularized it. And that's what it comes down to. The answer to 1984 is 1776. Does that mean the national government's perfect? No. Does it mean the state government's perfect? No. Does it mean the county government's perfect? No. Does it mean the city government's perfect? No. Does it mean your local housing authority's perfect? No. It's all being centralized now under UNESCO, under the UN, under Agenda 21 treaty to remove any local control. And that's why the feds will stand down, let everything get worse, and then demand more power and trillions more funding over the next decade. The same response in Australia, the same response in Europe, the same response all over. Bring in the people that have Ebola, let them spread it in the hospitals, now happening. In Australia, in Spain, same global program. In England, if you are robbed 3 times and finally fight back with a golf club and break somebody's collarbone, they put you in jail for 8 years. The guy that's trying to rape your wife gets no jail time, sues you and wins. Because the ultimate crime now is standing up for yourself. Bullies beating your kid up, never gets in trouble. Your child fights back, the police will take them to jail. Because the ultimate sin, it's not even the police doing it, it's the bureaucrats at the school, the political correctness. The ultimate sin is defending yourself. You're only allowed to go to the state and go to the system for it to then come swoop in. And then when you call it in, it will generally come in and do your bidding, but only for a season. Only until it's taken over and set the precedent that only it has the right to force. What did the UN say in their Unitor document, July 7th, 2000? Published by the New American Magazine out of the UN Minutes, the United Nations Small Arms Disarmament Body. They said civilian ownership of firearms threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. Never before has a more true statement been uttered by the UN except for one word, legitimate. There is nothing legitimate about a power monopoly of the state. That is the world out of balance, a nightmare scenario, body politic, cancer. Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, Fidel Castro, and Jeffrey Dahmer all rolled into a big stinking you-know-what sandwich, and I'm not taking a bite. Stay with us. There's a national poll out today. 40% of Americans believe the government, the federal government, which doesn't exist, it's totally seized by foreign banking interests publicly, completely predatory, sees us as human resources. They believe the federal government will save them from Ebola. Well, if you call forced inoculations and mass illnesses and death saving you, then I guess so. If you go back to the actual numbers, we've had medical doctors on to break this down and shown the graphs of polio in this country in the 1950s. It got worse after they started the inoculations, and they just called it paralysis. My grandmother got polio 1 month after receiving the polio vaccine. But everything is awesome, we're told, and there's no side effects from vaccines, and it's the law. You've got to take them to go to school, and Gardasil's the law. And people with a straight face go, Alex, I don't believe you. They say it's the law to take Gardasil. They say it's the law to take vaccines to go to school. And I go, there is no law on either front. They're lying to you. And then I say, Google vaccine waiver form. And it's a waiver to something that's not even a law. It's to policy. And then there is no law for Gardasil. It's not even recommended anymore. But it doesn't matter, see, because they have someone in a health department white lab coat get up on local TV because we trust the locals more. They're really reading a globalist script that's all centralized. And they don't even think about that. They just go do their job. I ran into one of the heads of the state health department on the hike and bike trail over the vaccine program. He told me his name. He said, just don't use it. And I looked it up. And he admitted, yeah, vaccines are hurting a lot of people, but it's just got to be done, for the overall good. And I said, but a lot of the numbers and studies show it's actually worse overall. And he said, well, doesn't really matter, does it? So, see, I didn't mean to digress off. It's just that here's the Ebola stack of news, and I'll get into all the North Korea news, the latest on the Middle East news, and the economy news, and more. HHS Secretary, there may be other cases of Ebola in the United States. Well, I thought it was preposterous that this guy running around for a couple of weeks, with Ebola might spread it. I mean, that's just, who would think that? Probably a conspiracy theorist. Ebola crisis. Global response has failed miserably, says World Bank chief. Jim Kim demands $20 billion fund, of course, to the private banking consolidation to give to their buddies, and says we failed miserably. Oh, see, they screwed up, and the answer is $20 billion to the IMF and World Bank, who are the governmental global fronts. They're the worldwide equivalent of the private Federal Reserve that calls itself federal. And remember 20 years ago, most people thought the Federal Reserve was really federal. Almost everyone now knows it's not federal. It's a fraud con game, just side issue. See, this is planet hoax, folks. It's all lies. Jim Kim demands $20 billion fund and says we failed miserably as cases in Spain and U.S. fuel fear of Western pandemic. Gee, I said they'd want IMF and World Bank money 3 months ago when all this started cranking up, and I said they'd let it get out of control if they followed their past MO. And criminals follow a modus operandi. And now it's happening, just as we said it would. The president of the World Bank, Jim Kim, admitted on Wednesday that the international community had failed miserably in its response to Ebola virus that had killed more than 3,800 people in West Africa, and one of the crises now affecting Spain and the U.S. was going to get much worse. Why'd you bring people with Ebola into Spain and then healthcare workers are getting it? Gee, that's what we said would happen. Not because we're that smart. 2 + 2 = 4. I'm sorry. I'm the bad man. Hundreds of publications demonized us because we dare say this was coming, and they demonized Drudge as well because he dared say it. Oh, my gosh. We're so horrible. We linked to the CDC's own reports and the UN's own reports. We apologize for being dead on right again. Please, Rachel Maddow, don't call me a conspiracy theorist with your tiny viewership that has less viewers in an hour than we have in 10 minutes. Oh, you've got a short haircut and act bossy and Jezebel. Oh, I was politically incorrect. I talked to a woman in a way that was bad. You're not allowed to disagree with a woman or you're against women. I've got to vote for Hillary. You're right. You're my boss. You tell me what to do, okay? You said our kids belong to the state. You're not a fruitcake weirdo totalitarian that everyone should laugh at. I'm going to go home and cry tonight because you bossed me around. Oh, I gotta do what you say because you're so liberal, even though by every yardstick you're a flaming fascist piece of trash, control freak, divide and conquer, maggot, failure, piece of crap. Excuse me. I break free of your mind control, filth. Make fun of me all you want for being red-blooded. You want people to go, oh, I better not be red-blooded to then awaken the rest of the sheep. They don't want you to wake up and say, get out there and warn people, because then their reign of evil might end and they might be brought to justice for their crimes. Stay with us. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.